You know what's funny? Everyone thinks they know how they'd react if their world came crashing down in public. They imagine themselves throwing drinks, screaming, making a scene worthy of reality TV. But when Josh looked at me across that bougie brunch table at the Cosmopolitan's terrace restaurant, with mimosas sparkling in crystal flutes and his boys smirking behind their Ray-Bans, and said, "I'm calling off the wedding, Lydia. I don't love you anymore." I felt something cold and clear settle over me like ice water. Not rage, not heartbreak, clarity. I smiled, pulled off that 3-carat Tiffany rock he had proposed with 6 months ago, and slid it across the white tablecloth. "Thank you for your honesty, Josh." My voice didn't shake. I stood up, smoothing down my Zimmerman dress, and looked at each of his fratty finance bro friends who'd been chuckling like this was some kind of joke. "I'll be hosting a dodged a bullet party instead of a wedding. You're all uninvited." But Josh's side piece, sitting 3 tables over, she's welcome to come watch what happens when you screw over a woman who knows where all your offshore accounts are hidden. The laughter died real quick. Josh's face went from smug to ghost white in about 2 seconds flat. His buddy Marcus actually choked on his Eggs Benedict. But the real kicker? The blonde in the corner booth, the one who'd been sneaking glances at our table all morning, looked like she wanted to crawl under the furniture. Yeah, I'd clocked her the second we sat down. You don't grow up in Vegas without learning to spot a player's tell. I grabbed my Birkin, dropped $300 bills on the table because I wasn't about to let Josh pay for my last meal with him, and walked out with my head high. The valet brought my Mercedes around, and I tipped him $50 because spite is expensive, but so worth it. I didn't cry. Not yet. I drove down the strip with the windows down and Beyoncé blasting, because if you're gonna have your heart shattered in Las Vegas, you might as well soundtrack it right. Here's what you need to know about me. I'm not some trust fund princess who lucked into money. I built my life from scratch after clawing my way out of a double wide in Henderson with a drunk mom and an absent father. I put myself through UNLV working 3 jobs, graduated top of my class in business, and spent the last 8 years building a luxury event planning company that caters to the 1%. My client list reads like a Forbes 500 directory. I've planned weddings for tech billionaires, birthday parties for movie stars, corporate retreats that cost more than most people's houses. I know secrets that could tank stock prices and ruin political careers. And Josh? Josh was the golden boy venture capitalist I met at a charity gala 2 years ago who swept me off my feet with his family's old money, his penthouse at the Martin, and promises of a future that looked nothing like my past. Joke's on me, right? Except it wasn't. Not really, because I had learned something crucial in my line of work. Never trust anyone completely, and always have a backup plan. While Josh thought I was just his pretty fiancé busy planning our ridiculous 200-guest wedding at the Bellagio, I'd been paying attention to the late-night texts he thought I didn't see, the work trips that didn't match his calendar, the withdrawals from our joint account that bought jewelry I never received. I'm not stupid, and I sure as hell wasn't about to marry a man who thought I was. But I'd played along because I needed to know how deep the betrayal went. Turns out, pretty damn deep. I pulled into the underground garage of my office building in Summerlin, killed the engine, and finally let myself feel it. The humiliation, the anger, the grief for the future I'd actually started to believe in, despite all my trust issues. I cried for maybe 10 minutes. Ugly crying with mascara running and my chest heaving. Then I fixed my makeup in the rearview mirror, got out of the car, and rode the elevator up to my 20th floor office with one thought crystallizing in my mind. Josh Monroe picked the wrong woman to play. My assistant Kira took one look at my face and went pale. Oh my God, what happened? She'd been helping me plan every detail of what was supposed to be the wedding of the season. 3 months away, venue locked, deposits paid, dress fitted. St. Laurent tux ordered for Josh. A honeymoon in Bora Bora that cost $40,000. Change of plans, I said, walking past her into my corner office with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the desert mountains. Cancel everything wedding-related, call our lawyer, and get me every piece of documentation we have on the Monroe family investments. Because here's the thing nobody tells you about dating rich guys in Vegas. They all invest in each other's ventures, and they all assume their little woman is too busy looking pretty to understand cap tables and equity stakes. Kira's jaw dropped. Lydia, you're scaring me. Good, I said, dropping into my leather chair and pulling up my laptop. Scared means alert. Alert means we don't make mistakes, and we can't afford mistakes right now. I looked up at her, and I must have had some kind of expression on my face because she actually stepped back. Josh called off the wedding this morning at brunch in front of his boys because apparently he's been screwing some bottle service girl from Omnia and decided he'd rather trade down than man up. That absolute piece of... Kara started, her voice rising. Save it. I cut her off. I need you focused. Get me Marcus Chen's contact info, Levi Rothstein's, and especially Tyler West's. Josh's 3 amigos. The ones who are laughing their asses off this morning. I pulled up my private files, the ones encrypted behind 3 passwords. They're about to learn why you don't embarrass a woman who's planned events for half the power players in the city. Kara's jaw dropped. Lydia, you're scaring me. Good, I said. Scared means alert. Alert means we don't make mistakes, and we can't afford mistakes right now. I looked up at her, and I must have had some kind of expression on my face, because she actually stepped back. Josh called off the wedding this morning, at brunch, in front of his boys, because apparently he's been screwing some bottle service girl from Omnia and decided he'd rather trade down than man up. That absolute piece of... Kara started, her voice rising. Save it. I cut her off. I need you focused. Get me Marcus Chen's contact info, Levi Rothstein's, and especially Tyler West's. Josh's 3 amigos. The ones who are laughing their asses off this morning. I pulled up my private files, the ones encrypted behind 3 passwords. They're about to learn why you don't embarrass a woman who's planned events for half the power players in the city. Kara's jaw dropped. Lydia, you're scaring me. Good, I said, flatly. No, scratch that. Chernobyl. I want fallout for generations. She actually smiled, fierce and sharp. I'll get started on the files. But Lydia, you should know that Dominic called earlier, said it was urgent and personal. My stomach dropped. Dominic Ferrara, the name I hadn't heard in almost a year, even though I thought about him way more than I should. My ex from 3 years ago, the one who got away, or more accurately, the one I pushed away because I was too scared of how intense things got between us. He was everything Josh pretended to be, self-made, dangerous in the best way, and so stupidly honest it hurt. He ran security for half the casinos on the Strip and owned a private investigation firm that catered to people who needed problems solved quietly. We dated for 8 months, and it had been volcanic, the kind of relationship that left marks. But when he started talking about forever, I'd panicked and ended things, claiming I needed to focus on my career. Truth was, I'd been terrified of wanting someone that much. What did he want? I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. Wouldn't say, just that he needed to talk to you, and it couldn't wait. Kira paused. You gonna call him back? Was I? Dominic represented everything complicated in my life. He'd seen me at my most vulnerable, knew my history, understood exactly why I'd built walls so high, and he'd walked away without a fight when I asked him to, which somehow made it worse. Later, I decided. Right now, I need to focus on Josh. The rest of the day blurred into action. I called my lawyer, Miranda Chen, a shark in Louboutins who'd helped me set up my business and had been trying to get me to sign a prenup Josh kept forgetting to schedule time for. I told you that boy was trouble the second I explained the situation. But silver lining, no prenup means all those joint assets are fair game, and Nevada is a community property state. We're not married, I pointed out. No, but you've been cohabitating for 2 years, and I seem to remember you fronting a significant amount of capital for your last venture fund under a personal loan agreement. How much was that again? I smiled for the first time since the disastrous brunch. $250,000 with interest, which he's never paid back. There's my girl, Miranda practically purred. Send me the paperwork. We'll start with a demand letter and see how quickly Mr. Monroe wants to play ball. Oh, and Lydia, I'd also look into that property he bought in Henderson last year, the one he told you was an investment property. My blood went cold. What about it? Let's just say I have a friend at the county recorder's office who owes me a favor. That property is titled in Josh's name and one Amber Sinclair, jointly, filed 8 months ago. Amber, the blonde from the restaurant. 8 months ago was when Josh proposed, which meant he'd been setting up house with another woman while putting a ring on my finger. The betrayal hit fresh and sharp, but underneath it was something darker and more useful. Pure, cold rage. Miranda, I said quietly, I need everything you can find on Amber Sinclair and that property, and I need it yesterday. Already on it? I'll call you tonight. I hung up and stared out at the Vegas skyline, the casinos glittering in the afternoon sun like promises that were always just out of reach. This city had taught me to gamble, but only when you knew the house odds. And right now, I was the house. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Heard about brunch. I'm sorry. Can we talk? D. Dominic. Of course he'd already heard. In Vegas, gossip traveled faster than light, especially in our circles, and Dominic made it his business to know everything. I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. What would I even say? That I'd ignored all his warnings about Josh, gotten engaged to spite my own better judgment, and now looked like an idiot? Before I could decide, another text came through. This one from Josh. We need to talk. You're overreacting. It doesn't have to be like this. The audacity, the sheer, unbelievable audacity of this man. I laughed out loud, a harsh sound that made Kira poke her head in, looking concerned. I held up my phone so she could read it. Can you believe this guy? She snorted. He's got some nerve. What are you going to say? Nothing, I decided, setting the phone down. Radio silence is worse than anger. Let him wonder. Let him sweat. I pulled up my contacts and found the one I needed. But I am going to make a few calls, starting with the event coordinator at the Bellagio. Lydia, said Kira slowly, what are you planning? Oh, honey, I smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. I'm still having my party, but the guest list just got a lot more interesting. And the theme? Well, let's just say everyone's going to learn exactly what kind of man Josh Monroe really is. I spent the next 3 hours on the phone, my fingers flying across my laptop keyboard as I compiled what I privately called my receipts file. Text messages I'd screenshotted when Josh thought I was asleep. Bank statements showing those mysterious withdrawals. Emails from his assistant accidentally sent to me instead of Amber, making it clear she'd been around way longer than 8 months. Photos from his Instagram that I'd archived before he made his account private last month. He'd been sloppy, arrogant in his assumption that I was too in love or too stupid to notice the signs. Men always underestimated me. It was practically my superpower at this point. By 6 p.m., I had enough evidence to bury Josh socially and financially. But I wanted more than that. I wanted him to understand what he'd thrown away, what he'd lost. Not because I still loved him, that had died the second he opened his mouth at brunch, but because people like Josh needed to learn that actions had consequences. My office phone rang, internal line. There's a Dominic Ferrara here to see you, Kira said, her voice careful. Should I send him away? My heart did something complicated in my chest. Of course he showed up in person. That was so typically Dominic, showing up when I was at my messiest, seeing through all my defenses. Give me 2 minutes, then send him in. I used those 2 minutes to touch up my lipstick, straighten my dress, and remind myself that I was fine. Totally fine. I didn't need rescuing or comforting or whatever Dominic thought he was here to do. When Kira opened the door and he walked in, all 6'3" of Italian-American muscle in a fitted black suit that probably cost more than Josh's entire wardrobe, I felt something in my chest crack just a little. "Lydia," he said, and his voice was exactly as I remembered. Low, rough, with that hint of Brooklyn that never quite left despite 15 years in Vegas. His dark eyes swept over me, assessing, concerned. "You look like hell." Despite everything, I laughed. "You always were a charmer, Dominic." "I'm serious." He closed the door behind him and crossed the office in 3 strides, stopping just close enough that I could smell his cologne. Acqua di Gio. I'd bought him that bottle for his birthday 2 years ago, and the fact that he still wore it made my throat tight. "I heard what happened. Josh is a dead man if you want him to be." "Tempting," I admitted, "but I'm handling it my own way." He studied my face, and I had to fight not to look away. Dominic saw too much, always had. Handling it how? Because if you're planning something that's going to blow back on you, since when do you care? The words came out sharper than I intended, defensive. His jaw tightened. I never stopped caring, and you know it. He ran a hand through his dark hair, a gesture I remembered from every argument we'd ever had. "You're the one who walked away, remember? Said we were moving too fast, that you needed space. Then 6 months later, you're engaged to some trust fund pretty boy who wouldn't know a hard day's work if it bit him in his entitled ass." Right, I said, because he was. Josh was safe, uncomplicated, or so I thought. I laughed bitterly. Turns out he was just better at hiding the complications. Dominic's expression softened slightly. "Lydia, what are you planning?" "Why? You gonna try to stop me?" "No," he said simply. "I'm gonna help you. That's why I'm here." I stared at him, searching for the angle, the catch. But Dominic didn't operate that way. He was straightforward to a fault, loyal to the point of stupidity when it came to people he cared about. It was one of the things I'd loved and feared most about him. "Why would you help me after Because you're Lydia Castellano. Because you deserve better than a punk like Josh. And because maybe I want to remind you what it's like to have someone in your corner who actually gives a damn." He pulled out his phone, tapped the screen, and held it up so I could see. It was a photo of Josh and Amber, taken sometime last week based on the clothes, coming out of the Henderson property Miranda had mentioned. They looked cozy, domestic, like a real couple. "How did you—" "I've been watching him for 3 months, Dominic said, pocketing his phone. "Had a feeling something was off. You've been stressed, distracted at the few events I've seen you at. Figured it was wedding jitters, but my gut said otherwise. So I did some digging." 3 months? I repeated, something cold and sharp twisting in my stomach. "You knew for 3 months and didn't tell me?" "I needed proof before I came to you with it. You wouldn't have believed me otherwise. You were in love with him, or thought you were. And He stopped, jaw working. "I wasn't going to be the ex who couldn't let go, poisoning your relationship out of jealousy." "But you were jealous?" "Of course I was jealous," he said, and there was heat in his voice now, real emotion breaking through that controlled exterior. "I watched you plan a future with someone who didn't deserve you, watched you smile at him the way you used to smile at me, wanted to punch him every time I saw his hand on your back at some charity gala. But you made your choice, Lydia. I respected that. I just wanted to make sure you had all the information before you made it permanent." The honesty of it, the raw admission, hit me harder than Josh's betrayal. Because this was the difference between them. Josh lied and manipulated and cheated. Dominic stood in front of me and told me hard truths even when it cost him something. "Show me what else you have," I said, my voice rough. He pulled out a tablet from his briefcase, unlocked it, and handed it over. 3 months of surveillance, bank records, property deeds, phone records, timeline of his relationship with Amber Sinclair, which, by the way, started 18 months ago, not 8. They met at Omnia, where she worked bottle service, like you guessed. He set her up in that Henderson house last year, been paying her rent and living expenses. She quit the club 6 months ago when he convinced her she was going to be his wife. Sound familiar? I scrolled through the files, my mind cataloging every piece of evidence, every lie Josh had told. 18 months. The entire time we'd been serious, building toward a future. Every I love you, every you're the one, every promise had been wrapped around this secret second life. He played us both, I said quietly. Yeah, Dominic agreed. He's a con artist in expensive clothes, and he's about to learn what happens when you con the wrong people. I looked up at him. What do you mean? I mean, Josh's venture fund, the one you invested in, he's been running it like a personal piggy bank, skimming off the top, making unauthorized investments, violating about 15 different SEC regulations. I've got documentation that'll bury him professionally. But, he paused, something dangerous flickering in his eyes, that's legal stuff. Takes time. I also know some people who specialize in more immediate forms of justice, if that's what you're looking for. Dominic? I'm not suggesting we do anything illegal, he said quickly. But if you want Josh to understand real consequences, real fear, I can make that happen. All you have to do is say the word. I should have said no. Should have told him to leave, that I'd handle this through proper channels. But looking at those files, seeing the evidence of Josh's systematic betrayal, I felt something dark and hungry unfold in my chest. Tell me more, I said. Dominic smiled, and it reminded me why half the criminals in Vegas were scared of him. Let me take you to dinner. We'll discuss strategy. He glanced at his watch, an understated Rolex. There's a new place on Spring Mountain. Really private. We can talk freely. This isn't a date, I warned.
Never said it was, he replied, but his eyes said otherwise. This is business. You want revenge? I'm the best in the city at delivering it. Think of me as a consultant. I knew I should say no. Knew that getting Dominic involved in this meant opening doors I'd spent a year trying to keep closed. But I was angry and hurt and tired of playing by rules that only seemed to apply to me. Fine, I decided, but I'm driving myself. And Dominic, whatever we do, it stays legal. I'm not losing everything I've built because Josh is a cheating scumbag. Wouldn't dream of it, he said. Legal, ruthless, and completely devastating. That's the Lydia Castellano special. We left the office together, Kira raising her eyebrows as we passed, but smart enough not to comment. In the elevator, pressed close in the small space, I was hyper-aware of Dominic's presence, the warmth radiating off him, the familiar scent that brought back memories I'd worked hard to suppress. Memories of late nights in his bed, his hands on my skin, the way he looked at me like I was the only thing that mattered in his world. I'd run from that intensity because it scared me, because believing in it, trusting it, meant making myself vulnerable in ways I'd sworn never to do again after my childhood. Stop thinking so loud, Dominic murmured, eyes on the descending floor numbers. I can practically hear the gears turning in your head. I'm just trying to figure out your angle, I said. Why you really want to help. The elevator stopped. Doors opened. He held them with one hand and turned to face me fully. Maybe I want to prove that not every man in your life is going to let you down. Maybe I think you deserve someone who'll burn the world down if that's what it takes to see you smile again. Or maybe, his voice dropped lower, intimate. I'm selfish, and I want you to remember what it was like when someone actually put you first. Then he walked out into the parking garage, leaving me standing there with my heart racing and my carefully constructed walls feeling thinner than they had in months. I followed him to my car, hands shaking slightly as I unlocked it. This was a mistake. I knew it was a mistake, but God help me, I was going to make it anyway. Because if I was going down, I was taking Josh with me. And if that meant accepting help from the one man who'd ever seen past my defenses, Well, I'd survived worse. I could survive Dominic Ferrara. Probably. Maybe. I started the engine and pulled out of the garage, watching his black Range Rover follow behind me, and wondered if I was making the biggest mistake of my life or finally doing something right for once. The restaurant was tucked into a strip mall, which in Vegas meant it was either terrible or incredible with no in between. This was the latter. Dominic greeted the owner by name, spoke rapid Italian, and we were ushered to a private room in the back with soundproofing and no windows. Clearly, this wasn't his first time using this spot for sensitive conversations. We ordered wine, food I wouldn't remember later, and then it was just the two of us and the elephant in the room. Okay, I said, taking a long sip of very expensive Barolo. Lay it out for me. What's your plan? Dominic pulled out his tablet again and spread the files across the table. First, the legal stuff. You have grounds for a lawsuit to recover your investment plus interest and damages. Miranda's probably already working that angle. But lawsuits are public, messy, and they take forever. Josh will hire lawyers, drag it out, maybe settle for pennies on the dollar years from now. That's not satisfying. No, I agreed, it's not. Second option, we expose him. The SEC violations, the fraud, all of it. I have contacts at the regulators, reporters who owe me favors. We could have his fund shut down, his professional reputation destroyed, maybe even criminal charges if we push hard enough. That's more satisfying, but still impersonal. And the third option? I asked, though I thought I knew. Dominic leaned back in his chair, studying me. We hit him where it really hurts. His ego, his status, his sense of superiority. We throw that party you mentioned, the dodged a bullet party, but we make it the event of the season. Invite everyone who matters in Vegas, and we make damn sure Josh and Amber are there to watch as you tear their lives apart piece by piece in front of God and everybody. I felt my pulse quicken. Public humiliation. Exactly, but classy, elegant, the kind of thing people will talk about for years. You're an event planner, Lydia. You know how to throw a party that makes a statement. So make one. Show the whole city what Josh really is. And when you're done, when his reputation is in tatters and no one will touch him professionally or socially, that's when Miranda hits him with the lawsuit. That's when the SEC gets my files. That's when every door he thought was open slams shut in his face. It was diabolical, calculated, absolutely devastating, and I loved it. He'll try to stop us. Let him try. I've got enough dirt on him to keep him quiet. And if he does try something, well, that just gives us more ammunition. The beautiful thing about going after someone like Josh is that guys like him always underestimate the people they've wronged. They think you'll cry, maybe throw a tantrum, then slink away. They never expect scorched earth. And Amber? I asked. What about her? Dominic's expression went cold. She knew he was engaged, knew he was using her. She made her choices. But between you and me, I think Amber is going to figure out real quick that Josh isn't the golden ticket she thought he was. And when she does, she might become a very useful ally. You want to flip her? If she's smart, she'll take the out. If not, he shrugged. She goes down with him. I sat back, my mind already racing through logistics. Guest list, venue, theme, timeline, how to orchestrate maximum damage with minimal blowback. This was what I did, what I was good at, taking someone's vision and making it reality. Only this time, the vision was revenge. I'll need help, I said. Staff, support, someone to watch my back when Josh inevitably loses his mind.
You've got it, Dominic said immediately. Whatever you need. My team, my resources, me. I'm all in. Why? I asked again, needing to understand. Why go this far for me? He was quiet for a long moment, twirling his wine glass, eyes distant. When he finally spoke, his voice was soft, almost vulnerable. Because 18 months ago, you were the best thing that ever happened to me. Because I've spent every day since wondering if I'd pushed too hard, asked for too much. And because watching you get hurt by someone who doesn't value what I lost. He stopped,
jaw tight. I can't make you love me again, Lydia. I learned that the hard way, but I can make damn sure the man who hurt you regrets every second of it. That's enough for me. The honesty of it broke something open in my chest. I reached across the table, covered his hand with mine. I never stopped loving you, I admitted, the words coming out before I could stop them. I just got scared. You were so intense, so all-consuming, and I didn't know how to handle it. Josh was easy, safe. A mistake, clearly, but at the time, I thought I was protecting myself. From what? Dominic asked, flipping his hand to thread his fingers through mine. From this. From wanting someone so much it hurts. From giving someone the power to destroy me. I laughed shakily. Turns out I gave that power to Josh anyway, and he didn't even have to work for it. He didn't destroy you, Dominic said firmly. You're still here, still standing, still the smartest, toughest, most beautiful woman I've ever met. Josh just proved he wasn't worthy of you. But Lydia, his thumbs stroked over my knuckles, I'm not asking you to give me another chance right now. First, we handle Josh. We make him pay. And then, when the dust settles, maybe you and I can figure out if there's still something here worth fighting for. I nodded, not trusting my voice. The food came then, breaking the moment, and we ate and planned, and slowly the shock of the morning gave way to something sharper and more focused: purpose. By the time we finished dinner, I had the bones of a plan. The party would be in 3 weeks, right when my wedding was supposed to happen. Same venue, same date, completely different purpose. I'd invite everyone from our original guest list, plus Josh's business associates, his family, every social climber and influencer in Vegas. The theme would be new beginnings, which sounded optimistic and classy, but the content? Oh, the content would be something else entirely. Dominic walked me to my car, his hand on the small of my back, and for the first time all day, I felt like maybe I was going to survive this. Maybe I was even going to come out stronger. Thank you, I said, turning to face him in the dim garage lighting. For everything. For believing in me even when I didn't believe in myself.
Always, he said simply. Then, hesitating, can I ask you something? Anything. When you were planning that wedding, walking around with Josh's ring on your finger, were you happy? Really happy? I thought about it. Really thought about it. I thought I was, I admitted. But looking back, I was relieved. Relieved that someone wanted me, that I'd made it work, that I could point to a relationship and say, see, I'm not damaged after all. But happy? I shook my head. Happy feels like this. Like plotting revenge with someone who actually sees me. Like being angry and hurt and alive instead of just content. Dominic smiled, and it was the real smile, the one that crinkled the corners of his eyes. Then let's get you more of that. Starting with making Josh Monroe regret the day he ever thought he could play you. Deal, I said. He kissed my forehead, chaste and sweet, then stepped back and let me leave. I drove home to my condo in the Ogden, poured myself a very large glass of wine, and finally let myself process the day. Josh was gone. My wedding was canceled. My future was a blank slate. And somehow, impossibly, I felt lighter than I had in months. My phone buzzed. A text from Josh. Lydia, please, can we talk like adults? I made a mistake, but we can fix this. I stared at the message, then took a screenshot and sent it to Dominic with the caption, "Evidence of continued delusion." His response came back immediately. Ignore him. Let him panic. I deleted Josh's message without responding, blocked his number, and started a new note on my phone. At the top, I wrote, Operation Scorched Earth. Then I started listing everything I needed to make this party happen. Every detail, every element, every moment of Josh's very public downfall. By the time I went to bed at 2 a.m., I had a roadmap. 3 weeks to pull off the event that would define my career and destroy Josh's life.
I fell asleep with a smile on my face, and for once, I didn't dream about the future I'd lost. I dreamed about the one I was about to build. 3 weeks. That's all I had. That's all Josh and Amber had left before their world came crashing down around them. And I was going to enjoy every single second of it. But first, I had to figure out exactly how Dominic's surveillance had captured photos from inside that Henderson property. Because if I knew Dominic, and I did, there was something he wasn't telling me. Something that was going to change everything. And maybe, just maybe, that secret was the key to understanding why Josh had risked everything to be with Amber Sinclair in the first place. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls from Josh's mother, Victoria Monroe, the kind of old money Vegas royalty who thought her family's casino fortune made them untouchable. I deleted every voicemail without listening because I already knew what they'd say. How could I embarrass her son? Didn't I know who they were? I was being unreasonable and dramatic. The Monroe family had been treating me like some kind of gold digger since day one. Never mind that I've made my first million before Josh even knew what a real job looked like. They'd tolerated me because I was pretty enough and successful enough to not embarrass them at country club brunches, but I'd never been good enough. Not really. Well, Victoria was about to learn that the girl from the Henderson trailer park had claws, and I knew exactly where to sink them. I got to the office by 7, running on black coffee and spite, which honestly was a pretty effective fuel combination. Kira was already there, bless her, with a stack of files on my desk and a look on her face that said she'd been digging all night. Okay, so I've got some tea that's going to make your whole week, she said, dropping into the chair across from me. Remember how you asked me to look into Marcus, Levi, and Tyler, Josh's little frat pack? Yeah, I said, opening the first file. What'd you find? Marcus Chen, his wife, just filed for separation 3 weeks ago. Rumor is he's been screwing his personal trainer, a 23-year-old named Dakota, who's been posting thirst traps on Instagram with Marcus's Rolex visible in the background. Idiot didn't even try to hide it. She pulled up her phone, showed me the evidence. Sure enough, there was Marcus's distinctive custom Rolex with the diamond bezel in the corner of multiple photos. His wife, Jennifer, is apparently looking for allies in the divorce. I may have reached out through a mutual friend. I felt a slow smile spreading across my face. Oh, this is perfect. What about the others? Levi Rothstein is clean, unfortunately. Happily married, no side pieces, boring as hell. But Tyler West? Tira's grin turned wicked. Tyler's got a gambling problem that would make a Vegas casino blush. He's into some serious underground poker games, high-stakes stuff that's definitely not legal. And guess who's been bankrolling him when he gets in over his head? Josh, I breathed. Bingo. Your ex-fiancé has been playing White Knight, paying off Tyler's debts in exchange for loyalty and probably some shady business deals I haven't fully uncovered yet. But here's the kicker. Tyler owes Josh over $300,000 right now. I've got the records because one of Dominic's guys was able to trace the wire transfers. Dominic's already working on this? I asked, surprised. Kira gave me a knowing look. Girl, that man showed up here at 6 a.m. with a file folder this thick, she held her fingers apart, full of intel on Josh's entire social circle. He said, and I quote, "Lydia's gonna need ammunition, so I brought the whole arsenal." Then he left you a note. She handed me a cream-colored envelope with my name written in Dominic's precise handwriting. I opened it, my heart doing that annoying flutter thing it always did around anything Dominic-related. Inside was a single page. L. These files are just the beginning. Meet me at the Henderson property at noon. Come alone. There's something you need to see. D. That's not ominous at all, Kira muttered, reading over my shoulder. He loves his dramatic flair, I said, but my stomach was twisting with curiosity and something else I didn't want to examine too closely. What could possibly be at that house that Dominic needed to show me in person? Okay, so we've got leverage on Marcus and Tyler. That's 2 of Josh's 3 stooges who are going to think twice before laughing at his next public humiliation of a woman. What are you going to do with the info? Kira asked. Nothing yet. I'm just going to let them know I have it.
A friendly little heads up that if they want to keep their dirty laundry private, they'll stay far away from Josh and his drama. Self-preservation is a beautiful thing. I pulled up my calendar, started blocking out time for party planning. Now, let's talk about this event. I need it to be flawless, the kind of party that people are still talking about in 20 years. We spent the next 3 hours going over every detail. The invitations would go out today, hand-delivered by courier to every name on the original wedding guest list, plus a few choice additions. The design was elegant, minimalist, cream cardstock with rose gold foil. Lydia Castellano invites you to celebrate new beginnings. No mention of Josh, no explanation of why the venue and date were the same as the canceled wedding. Let people wonder. Let them gossip. By the time they showed up, everyone in Vegas would know exactly what had happened, and they'd be dying to see how I handled it. The venue was already paid for, thank God. The Bellagio's event coordinator, a woman named Sophie, who I'd worked with on a dozen high-profile weddings, had been horrified when I called yesterday to explain the situation. Lydia, honey, I am so sorry, but I have to tell you, this is going to be the event of the year. Everyone's going to want to be there. How do you want to play it? Exactly as planned. Same ballroom, same date, same five-star catering. But instead of a wedding, it's a celebration of freedom. I want champagne fountains, a killer DJ, and enough gorgeous florals to make people forget this was supposed to be anything else. Can you do that? Sweetie, for you, I'll make it legendary.
By 11:30, I'd confirmed vendors, approved designs, and sent out the first wave of invitations. My phone was already blowing up with responses, mostly shocked friends asking if I was okay, if this was real, what the hell had happened. I responded to exactly 3 people. My best friend Simone, who'd been trying to warn me about Josh for months and deserved an apology. Miranda, my lawyer, who needed to know the party was happening so she could plan her legal strike accordingly. And my little sister Maya, who still lived in Henderson and barely spoke to me but deserved to hear about the canceled wedding from me directly. Maya's response came back in seconds. Holy shit. Are you okay? Do I need to come kick his ass? I smiled despite everything. Maya was 10 years younger than me, had gotten out of the trailer park by joining the Air Force, and was currently stationed at Nellis. We'd been distant for years because I'd basically raised her after Mom got too drunk to function, and sometimes she resented me for it. But in moments like this, she was still my little sister, ready to fight my battles. I'm good, I texted back. But if you want to come to a party in 3 weeks and watch me publicly destroy my ex, you're invited. Wouldn't miss it. Love you, sis. Love you too. At 11:45, I grabbed my keys and headed out, telling Kira I'd be back in a few hours. The drive to Henderson took 30 minutes, and with every mile I traveled away from the glittering strip and into the suburbs where I'd grown up, I felt my chest get tighter. I hated this part of Vegas, the part that reminded me of who I used to be. Scared, poor, convinced I'd never amount to anything. But I'd gotten out. I'd made something of myself, and I wasn't about to let Josh or anyone else drag me back down. The Henderson property was in a new development, one of those cookie-cutter neighborhoods where every house looked the same except for the paint color. It was nice, upper middle class, the kind of place families move to for good schools and safe streets. Not the kind of place I'd expect Josh to buy for his mistress, honestly. He was all about flash and status. This was almost normal. Dominic's Range Rover was already in the driveway. I pulled in behind him, killed the engine, and sat there for a second, trying to calm my racing heart. What was I walking into? What had Dominic found that was so important he couldn't just tell me over the phone? He appeared at my car door before I could spiral further, opening it like a goddamn gentleman. "Thanks for coming," he said, and his expression was serious, almost grim. "I know this is weird, but trust me, you need to see this." "See what?" I asked, climbing out. The house looked empty, windows dark, no cars except ours. "Josh doesn't own this property," Dominic said, walking toward the front door. "Not really. It's titled in his name and Amber's, yeah, but the mortgage payments? They're coming from a trust fund, one that belongs to Victoria Monroe." I stopped walking. Josh's mother is paying for his mistress's house?
Not exactly. Dominic pulled out a key, unlocked the front door. Victoria doesn't know about this property. The trust fund access was granted through a legal loophole Josh exploited about 18 months ago. He's been siphoning money from his family's accounts without their knowledge, using it to fund this whole secret life.
If his parents found out, they'd cut him off completely and probably press charges for theft. How much money are we talking about? I asked, following him inside. The house was furnished, decorated, clearly lived in. There were photos on the walls, personal items on the coffee table. It looked like a home. Over $2 million in the last 18 months, Dominic said, watching my face. Josh has been systematically stealing from his own family to play house with Amber. But here's where it gets really interesting. He led me upstairs, down a hallway, into what looked like a master bedroom. He pointed to the photos on the dresser, and I felt my blood run cold. It wasn't just Amber in those photos. There was a little boy, maybe 4 years old, with Amber's blonde hair and someone else's eyes. In every picture, Josh was there, holding the kid, smiling like a proud father. "Oh my God," I whispered. "Meet Ethan Sinclair," Dominic said quietly. "Amber's son. But here's the thing, Lydia. That kid, he's not Josh's. Amber had him before she met Josh. Baby daddy's not in the picture, hasn't been since the kid was born. Josh stepped in, played stepdad, convinced Amber he was going to make them a real family." I sank down onto the edge of the bed, my mind reeling. He was playing house, building a whole alternate life? Yeah, and it gets worse. Dominic sat down next to me, his shoulder warm against mine. "I talked to Amber yesterday, showed up here, told her I was investigating Josh for fraud. She broke down, told me everything. Josh promised her marriage, told her he was single, that you were just some business associate he had to be seen with for appearances. He said once his latest investment fund closed, he'd have enough money to leave his obligations behind and commit to her and Ethan fully." "She didn't know about me," I said slowly. "She thought I was the other woman." "Exactly. Josh played you both. Told you Amber was just a fling, told her you were just a convenient facade. The engagement happened around the same time he bought this house because he was hedging his bets. He could marry you and keep his family's money and social status, or he could play family man with Amber and Ethan if things went south with you. Either way, he won." I laughed, but it came out bitter and sharp. "Except he's about to lose everything." "That's what I'm counting on." Dominic pulled out his phone, showed me a video. It was Amber, clearly recorded yesterday, sitting in the same bedroom we were in now. Her eyes were red, mascara streaked, and she looked devastated. "Lydia, if you're watching this, I am so sorry," video Amber said, her voice cracking. "I had no idea about you. Josh told me you were just someone his family wanted him to be seen with, that you didn't mean anything to him. He said he loved me, that he wanted to be Ethan's dad, that we were going to be a real family. I believed him because I'm an idiot who wanted so badly for my son to have a father. I quit my job. I let Josh pay for everything. I trusted him, and now I find out I was the side piece the whole time, that he was engaged to you, planning a wedding, and I was just, what, his dirty little secret?" She wiped her eyes, and I could see real anger starting to replace the tears. "I want to help you take him down. Whatever you need from me, you've got it. That bastard played us both, and he needs to pay." The video ended. I looked at Dominic. "You flipped her." "Wasn't hard. She's hurt, humiliated, and broke. Josh froze all her accounts yesterday after the Brunch blow-up. Probably figured she'd be a liability. She can't pay her mortgage, can't afford groceries, and she's got a 4-year-old to feed. So yeah, she's motivated." He pocketed his phone. "I told her you might be willing to help her out financially if she cooperated fully. Was I wrong?" I thought about it. 24 hours ago, I would have wanted to destroy Amber along with Josh. But seeing this house, learning about Ethan, hearing the desperation in her voice, she was a victim too. A different kind than me, maybe, but Josh had lied to her just as thoroughly as he'd lied to me. "How much does she need?" I asked. 3 months worth of expenses while she figures out her next move. Maybe 15 grand total. "Done," I said immediately, on the condition that she comes to the party and tells her story, in front of everyone. I want Josh to stand there and watch as both of his lies unravel simultaneously. Dominic smiled, slow and dangerous. I was hoping you'd say that. He stood, offered me his hand. Come on, there's one more thing you need to see. He led me back downstairs, into a home office I'd missed on the way in. The desk was covered in papers, and when I got closer, I realized they were financial documents. Josh's financial documents. How did you... Amber gave me access. Josh kept all his shady dealings here because he thought this house was his secret. Turns out, it's his downfall. These papers? He tapped the stack. Proof of embezzlement from his family's trust. Proof of SEC violations in his fund management. Proof that he's been lying to his investors about returns, tooking the books, and generally running his business like a Ponzi scheme waiting to collapse. Miranda's gonna have a field day with this. I picked up a document, scanned it, and felt a vicious satisfaction settle in my chest. Josh wasn't just a cheater. He was a criminal. And I had all the evidence I needed to ruin him completely. Copy everything, I said. I want 3 sets of these documents. One for Miranda, one for the SEC, and one for me. I've got digital copies encrypted in 3 separate locations. If Josh tries to destroy the originals, we've still got him. I turned to face him fully. This man who'd spent days putting together a case against my ex-fiancé, who'd tracked down the mistress and flipped her, who'd walked into the lion's den to get me the ammunition I needed. Why, I asked, for probably the 10th time since this all started. Why go this far? You could have just told me about Amber and walked away. Dominic stepped closer, and suddenly the small office felt even smaller. Because I love you, Lydia. I've loved you since the first time you showed up at my office 3 years ago. All business and fire, demanding I help you vet a client you suspected was running a con. I loved you through every dinner, every night we spent together. Every morning, I woke up with you in my arms. And I loved you when you walked away because you were scared of how good we were together. His hand came up, cupped my face. I loved you through watching you get engaged to someone else, and I love you now, standing in your cheating ex's secret house, helping you plan his destruction. So yeah, I'm gonna go this far. I'm gonna go as far as it takes, because that's what you do when you love someone. You show up, you fight for them, even when they don't ask you to. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only feel the warmth of his hand on my cheek, the intensity of his dark eyes, the truth of his words settling into my bones. Dominic, you don't have to say anything. I'm not asking for anything right now. I'm just telling you the truth because you deserve to know it. After we handle Josh, after the dust settles, if you want to explore what's still here between us, I'm ready. But if you need time, space, whatever, I'll give you that too. No pressure, no expectations, just honesty. I did the only thing I could think to do. I kissed him, grabbed the front of his shirt and pulled him down and kissed him like I should have 18 months ago when he'd asked me to move in and I'd panicked and run instead. He made a surprised sound, then his arms came around me and he was kissing me back, deep and hungry and perfect. It tasted like coming home, like finding something I'd lost and didn't think I'd ever get back. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, I rested my forehead against his chest. And I said, "I'm an idiot." He corrected, "You're human, and you've been hurt before. I get it. But Lydia, I'm not going anywhere this time. You're stuck with me." "Good." Then louder I said, "Now let's go destroy Josh Monroe's entire existence." We spent another hour at the house, photographing documents, securing evidence, making plans. Dominic called Amber and put her on speaker. "Lydia wants to meet you. You up for that?" There was a long pause.
"I don't know if I can face her," Amber said finally, her voice small. "I feel like such an idiot, such a cliché. The bottle service girl who thought a rich guy actually loved her." "Hey," I said, surprising myself. "I'm the successful businesswoman who thought the same thing. We both got played. But we can either let Josh win, or we can team up and make sure he never does this to anyone else. Your choice." Another pause. Then, "When do you want to meet?" Tomorrow, somewhere public. Let's say the Aria, lobby bar, 2 p.m.? I'll be there. We hung up, and Dominic looked at me with something like pride in his eyes. You're remarkable, you know that? I'm vindictive, I corrected. There's a difference. You're both. It's hot. I laughed despite everything, and it felt good. Real. Like maybe I was going to survive this after all. We locked up the house, made sure everything looked undisturbed, and headed back to our cars. Tonight, Dominic said, leaning against my driver's side door. Dinner at my place. I'll cook, we'll go over the master plan, and you can tell me about every single way you want to watch Josh suffer. That's a weird date, I pointed out. We're weird people. He kissed my forehead, my nose, finally my lips. Soft and sweet. 7 o'clock. Don't be late. I drove back to the office, floating on a strange combination of adrenaline, hope, and pure rage. Josh had no idea what was coming for him. None. He probably thought I was at home crying, maybe calling mutual friends to badmouth him. At worst, threatening to sue. He had no clue that I'd teamed up with his mistress, had evidence of his crimes, and was planning to detonate his entire life in front of 300 witnesses. The thought made me smile all the way back to Summerlin. Kira took one look at my face when I walked in and whistled. Okay, spill. What happened? I told her everything. The house, the kid, Amber's cooperation, Dominic's evidence, the whole insane situation. By the time I finished, Kira was staring at me with her mouth open. This is literally the craziest thing I've ever heard. And I once planned a wedding where the groom's other wife showed up mid-ceremony. It gets better, I said, pulling up the video of Amber on my phone. She's going to speak at the party. Tell her whole story. Can you imagine Josh's face? I'm gonna need popcorn for this, Kira muttered. Okay, so logistics. If Amber's speaking, we need to plan that carefully. Make it look natural, not staged. What if we do a toast section? You get up, thank everyone for coming, talk about new beginnings and honesty. Then you introduce Amber as someone who also learned some hard truths recently, and let her share her piece. Perfect, I agreed. Make it seem spontaneous, but devastating. I love it. The rest of the afternoon was a blur of phone calls and planning. Miranda called with an update on the lawsuit prep, sounding gleeful.
Lydia, with the documents Dominic sent over, we can bury Josh in litigation for the next decade. Civil court, criminal charges, SEC violations, take your pick. But my recommendation? We wait until after your party. Let him think he's gotten away with it. Then we hit him with everything at once. That's the plan, I confirmed. How much trouble is he really in? Well, the embezzlement from his family's trust alone is probably 5 to 10 years if they press charges. The SEC stuff could be another 5 to 7. The fraud with his investors... She paused. Let's just say Josh might want to get really familiar with the Nevada state prison system. Good, I said, and I meant it. Josh didn't just deserve social humiliation. He deserved real consequences. By 6 p.m., I was exhausted but satisfied. The party invitations were sent, Amber was cooperating, the evidence was secured, and I had a date with Dominic that I was actually looking forward to. I sent Kira home, locked up the office, and drove to Dominic's place in Summerlin, a sleek modern house that somehow managed to be both intimidating and welcoming. He answered the door in jeans and a black t-shirt, barefoot, looking more relaxed than I'd seen him in years. Right on time, he said, pulling me inside. Wine? God, yes! We ate on his back patio overlooking the city, the sun setting over the mountains in shades of orange and pink. He'd made pasta from scratch, which shouldn't have been as attractive as it was, and we talked about everything except Josh. My business, his security contracts, the mutual friends we'd lost touch with, the changes in Vegas over the past few years. It felt normal, easy, like we'd never been apart. I missed this, I admitted over dessert, some kind of amazing tiramisu. Just talking to you, being with you, I didn't realize how much until right now. I missed you every single day, Dominic said simply.
but I also understand why you left. You needed to figure some things out. I just wish it hadn't taken Josh breaking your heart for you to realize I was serious about us." "Me too," I said quietly. Then, because I needed to be as honest as he'd been, "I'm scared, Dominic. Scared of screwing this up again. Scared of disappointing you. Scared that once the revenge high wears off, you'll realize I'm still the same commitment-phobic disaster who ran away the first time." He reached across the table, took my hand. "Lydia, I know exactly who you are. The good, the bad, the terrified. And I'm still here. That should tell you something." "It tells me you're either incredibly patient or slightly masochistic." He laughed. "Maybe both. But here's the thing. I don't need you to be perfect. I don't need you to have all your shit figured out. I just need you to be honest with me, to tell me when you're scared instead of running, to let me in even when it's hard. Can you do that?"
I thought about it. Really thought about it. Could I be that vulnerable? Could I trust him with the broken parts of me I had spent years hiding? The answer surprised me. "I can try," I said. "I want to try. You deserve that. We deserve that." His smile was bright enough to light up the whole patio. "That's all I'm asking." We cleaned up together, moving around his kitchen like we'd done it 1,000 times before, and it felt right in a way nothing with Josh ever had. With Josh, I'd always been performing, trying to be the woman he wanted, the one who fit into his world. With Dominic, I could just be myself. Messy, vindictive, ambitious, scared, all of it. He walked me to my car around 11, and we stood in his driveway kissing like teenagers until I finally forced myself to pull away. "I should go," I said reluctantly. "Big day tomorrow. Meeting Amber, finalizing party details, potentially committing light fraud." "Just light fraud?" Dominic teased. I'm disappointed. "Fine, medium fraud. Are you happy?" "Ecstatic." He kissed me again, slower this time. "Text me when you get home. And Lydia, thank you for giving us another shot. I won't screw it up." "We won't screw it up," I corrected. "This is a team effort." I drove home with butterflies in my stomach and hope in my chest, two things I hadn't felt in way too long. Tomorrow, I'd meet Amber, compare notes on how we'd both been conned, and finalize the plan for Josh's destruction. But tonight I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, something good could come out of this disaster. That maybe losing Josh meant finding Dominic again. That maybe the universe was finally on my side. My phone buzzed as I pulled into my parking garage. A text from Josh, from a new number since I'd blocked his old one. "Lydia, I know you're angry, but calling off the wedding was the right thing to do. We both know we weren't really in love. Let's handle this like adults. I'll return the gifts, you keep the deposits, we both move on. No need for drama." I stared at the message, fury building in my chest. He thought he could just dismiss me like that, like our 2 years together meant nothing, like he could cheat, lie, steal, and then gaslight me into thinking the breakup was mutual. Oh, Josh, you sweet, stupid, arrogant man. I forwarded the text to Dominic and Miranda with the caption, "Exhibit A, the audacity." Then I typed out a response to Josh. "You're absolutely right. No need for drama. See you in 3 weeks at the party." I attached a photo of the invitation, the one announcing my New Beginnings celebration at the Bellagio on what should have been our wedding day. His response came in seconds. "What party? Lydia, what are you doing?" I didn't answer. Let him wonder. Let him panic. Let him spend the next 3 weeks trying to figure out my game plan. By the time he realized how thoroughly I'd outmaneuvered him, it would be way too late. I went to bed that night with my phone on silent, a glass of wine on my nightstand, and a growing sense of satisfaction in my chest. The first domino had fallen at that brunch.
But I was about to knock down the rest of the line, one by one, until Josh's entire carefully constructed life collapsed around him. And I was going to enjoy every second of it. Tomorrow, Amber, then the final party preparations, then 3 weeks until showtime. 3 weeks until I proved to everyone, including myself, that Lydia Castellano wasn't someone you played with. I was someone you respected, feared, and never, ever underestimated. Josh was about to learn that lesson the hard way. And honestly, I couldn't wait to teach him. But first, I needed to figure out what I was going to say to Amber Sinclair tomorrow. How do you bond with the woman your fiancé cheated with when you're both victims of the same con? How do you turn a rival into an ally? I'd figure it out. I always did. Because if there was one thing my trashy childhood taught me, it was how to survive. And if there was one thing my successful adulthood taught me, it was how to win. Josh Monroe was about to discover I was very, very good at both.
Meeting Amber Sinclair was nothing like I expected. I showed up at the Aria lobby bar 15 minutes early because I'm pathologically punctual, ordered a martini I didn't really want, and practiced what I was going to say. Something classy but firm, sympathetic but not weak. I had this whole speech prepared about how we were both victims and needed to present a united front. But when Amber walked in, all my prepared words died in my throat. She wasn't what I expected at all. Yeah, she was blonde and pretty in that Vegas girl way, but she looked exhausted, worn down. Her roots were showing, her designer bag was probably a knockoff, and she had that haunted look of someone who'd been surviving on hope and fumes for too long. When she saw me, she actually flinched. "Lydia?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Amber, sit down." It came out harsher than I meant, so I softened my tone. "Please, I don't bite. Much." She sat across from me, perched on the edge of the chair like she might bolt any second. "I don't know what to say," she admitted. "I'm so sorry. I know that doesn't mean anything, but I am. I had no idea Josh was engaged. He told me that I was just for show." "Yeah, Dominic told me. And for what it's worth, I believe you. Josh is a liar. A really, really good one. He had me fooled for 2 years, so 18 months for you isn't exactly shocking." She looked up at me, eyes shining with unshed tears. I feel like such an idiot, the dumb blonde who fell for the rich guy's lies, every stereotype in the book. Hey, I'm the successful businesswoman who ignored every red flag because I wanted to believe I'd finally found my happy ending. We're both idiots. We're also both survivors. I flagged down the waiter, ordered her a drink. "Dominic said Josh cut you off, that you can't pay your mortgage." "He froze everything the day after he broke up with you," Amber said, and there was real bitterness in her voice now. "I woke up that morning, and my debit card was declined at the grocery store. The house payment bounced. My phone got shut off. He just cut me loose, like I was nothing, like Ethan was nothing." Her voice cracked on her son's name. And there it was, the thing that made this whole situation go from soap opera drama to actually heartbreaking. Ethan's 4, right? Dominic showed me the pictures. "Yeah." Amber pulled out her phone, showed me a photo of a little boy with bright blue eyes and a gap-toothed smile. "He's the best thing that ever happened to me. His dad split before he was born, and I thought—" She stopped, swallowed hard. "I thought Josh was going to be the father figure Ethan deserved. Josh would take him to the park, read him bedtime stories, called him little man, and promised him he'd always be there. And Ethan believed him. He asks about Josh every day now, wants to know when he's coming back. How do I explain to a 4-year-old that the man he thought was going to be his dad was just using us?" I felt something crack in my chest. I'd been so focused on my own pain, my own betrayal, that I hadn't really processed what this meant for Amber's kid. Josh hadn't just screwed over 2 women, he'd broken a little boy's heart too. "You don't have to explain anything right now," I said quietly. "Kids are resilient. He'll be okay." And Amber, I meant what I said to Dominic. I'll cover 3 months of expenses, more if you need it. That's not charity, that's solidarity, women supporting women, or whatever. She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. Why would you do that? I slept with your fiancé.
You didn't know he was my fiancé, I interrupted. And honestly, you did me a favor. If Josh hadn't blown up our relationship at that brunch, I'd probably be married to him right now, and I'd have figured out he was a cheating embezzler about 6 months into the marriage when it was way harder to leave. So yeah, you inadvertently saved me from a way worse situation. The least I can do is make sure you and Ethan don't end up homeless because of Josh's bullshit. I don't know what to say, she whispered. Say you'll help me destroy him, I replied. Say you'll come to this party and tell everyone the truth about what he did, how he manipulated you, used you, lied to both of us. Say you'll stand with me while we watch his entire world crumble. That's the payment I want. Amber's expression shifted. The defeated, scared woman who'd walked in was replaced by someone harder, someone angry. He told Ethan he loved him, she said, her voice shaking with rage. Looked my baby in the eyes and promised him they'd go to Disneyland together, that he'd teach him to ride a bike, that he'd be there for every birthday and Christmas, and then he just disappeared, like we never mattered, like we were disposable. So let's make him pay. Not just for us, for Ethan too, because Josh needs to learn that you don't get to play with people's lives without consequences. I'm in, Amber said immediately. Whatever you need, I'll do it. We spent the next 2 hours going over the plan. Amber would attend the party as my guest. During the toast portion, I'd introduce her and she'd tell her story. Simple, devastating, effective. We rehearsed what she'd say, made sure she had clothes appropriate for the event, coordinated our schedules. By the time we left the aria, we weren't friends exactly, but we were allies, and that was enough. The next 3 weeks were a blur of activity. The party invitation sparked exactly the gossip firestorm I'd hoped for. Everyone in Vegas was talking about it. What was Lydia Castellano planning? Why was the party on the same date as her canceled wedding? Was this a breakdown or a power move? The speculation was delicious, and I fed it by staying completely silent on social media, declining all interview requests, and generally being mysterious as hell. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, I was orchestrating the most elaborate takedown in Vegas history. Miranda filed a civil lawsuit against Josh for fraud and breach of contract regarding my investment in his fund. The lawsuit was a matter of public record, which meant reporters started digging. They found the SEC violations. They found the embezzlement from his family's trust fund. Within a week, Josh's business partners were distancing themselves. Investors were demanding their money back. And his parents were livid. Victoria Monroe showed up at my office on a Tuesday afternoon, dressed in her usual Chanel armor, and demanded to see me. "You need to drop this lawsuit," she said without preamble. "You're destroying my son's reputation." "Your son destroyed his own reputation," I replied calmly. "I'm just making sure everyone knows about it." "Lydia, I know you're hurt, but this is vindictive. Joshua made a mistake. He's sorry. He wants to make amends." "Josh called off our wedding in public, in front of his friends, to humiliate me. He's been cheating on me for 18 months with a woman he set up in a house he bought with money he stole from your family's trust fund. He's been running his venture fund like a Ponzi scheme, lying to investors, violating federal regulations. The man's a criminal, Victoria, and you want me to protect him?" She went pale. "What are you talking about? What house?" So she really didn't know. I pulled up the property records on my computer, turned the screen to face her. Henderson, 4-bedroom, 3-bath, titled to Josh and Amber Sinclair, jointly.
Mortgage payments coming directly from your husband's trust fund. Josh has been stealing from your family for over a year. Victoria stared at the screen like it was a snake. That's not possible. Joshua wouldn't steal, wouldn't lie, wouldn't cheat. I laughed, harsh and bitter. "Victoria, your son is exactly the kind of man who would do all of those things. And he did them to me, to Amber, to you, to every investor stupid enough to trust him. So no, I'm not dropping the lawsuit. I'm pressing charges. And after my party next week, everyone in Vegas is going to know exactly what kind of man you raised." She stood abruptly,
her carefully maintained composure cracking. "You'll regret this, Lydia. The Monroe family has a long memory." "So do I said. "See yourself out." She left, and I felt a grim satisfaction. The dominoes were falling faster now. Josh's world was collapsing, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. Dominic was my rock through all of it. He showed up at my office with coffee when I'd been working too late, handled the logistics I didn't have bandwidth for, and generally reminded me that I wasn't alone in this. We hadn't officially gotten back together. There'd been no big conversation, no DTR moment, but we were together. He stayed over most nights, and I woke up to him making breakfast in my kitchen like he'd never left. It felt right in a way nothing with Josh ever had. "What do you think?" "I'm as ready as I'll ever be," I said. "Everyone's confirmed, Amber's prepared, Miranda's ready to serve Josh with legal papers the second he steps foot in the venue. The DJ has the playlist, the caterers are set. All we're missing is the guest of honor." "He'll come," Dominic said confidently. "His ego won't let him stay away. He needs to know what you're planning, and the only way to find out is to show up." "What if he makes a scene? Then my security team will escort him out." "But Lydia, I don't think he will. Josh is a coward. He'll sit there and take it because making a scene would be admitting guilt. He'll try to laugh it off, play it cool, act like none of it matters, and that's when you'll know you've won." He was right, of course. Dominic was always right about things like this. "After Saturday," I said quietly, "when all of this is over, I want to talk. About us. About what comes next." "I'd like that," he said, kissing my temple. "But for now, let's focus on making Josh Monroe's worst nightmare come true." Saturday arrived way too fast and not fast enough. I woke up at 6 a.m., even though the party didn't start until 7 p.m., too wired to sleep. I went for a run, then spent 3 hours getting ready. Hair, makeup, the works. I'd bought a dress specifically for this occasion, a stunning blood-red gown by Valentino that cost more than most people's monthly rent. It was dramatic, elegant, and sent exactly the message I wanted. I'm not broken, I'm dangerous. Kira met me at the Bellagio at 5 to do a final walkthrough. The ballroom looked incredible. Sophie had outdone herself. White roses everywhere, champagne fountains that caught the light, a color scheme of white and gold that was both bridal and not. It looked like a wedding reception and a celebration and a funeral, all at once. Perfect.
"Lydia, this is going to be legendary," Kira breathed, looking around. "People are going to talk about this night for years." "That's the plan," I said, smoothing down my dress. My hands were shaking slightly, adrenaline and nerves combining into something almost euphoric. Dominic arrived at 6, looking absolutely devastating in a perfectly tailored tux. He stopped when he saw me, and the heat in his eyes made my breath catch. "Jesus, Lydia, you look like I'm about to ruin a man's life?" "Like a goddamn queen," he corrected, crossing to me. "How are you feeling?" "Terrified, excited, ready to burn it all down." "That's my girl." He kissed me, careful not to mess up my lipstick. "Amber's here. She's in the prep room getting ready. She looks good. Nervous, but good. And Josh..." He checked his phone. "Josh just RSVP'd yes about 20 minutes ago." "He's coming?" My heart rate kicked up. Showtime. Guests started arriving at 7. I stood at the entrance with Dominic beside me, greeting everyone with a smile that probably looked manic. My friends, my clients, business associates, socialites, reporters I'd invited specifically to document the evening. And then, at 7:30, Josh walked in. He'd brought Amber with him. Not my Amber, but his own date, some 22-year-old influencer type who clearly had no idea what she was walking into. He was wearing the St. Laurent tux he'd ordered for our wedding, and the audacity of it made me want to scream. "Lydia," he said, flashing that charming smile that had fooled me for 2 years. "This is quite the party. Very dramatic." "I learned from the best," I replied sweetly. "So glad you could make it, Josh. Make yourself comfortable. The fun hasn't even started yet." He looked confused but moved past me into the ballroom, his date tottering along in heels too high for her.
I watched him go, watched him greet his friends, watched him act like nothing was wrong, like he hadn't destroyed 2 women's lives, like he was still the golden boy. Not for much longer. At 8 p.m., after everyone had arrived and the champagne had been flowing freely, I stepped up to the microphone. The room quieted instantly. 300 pairs of eyes on me. This was it. The moment I'd been planning for 3 weeks. "Thank you all for coming tonight," I said, my voice steady and clear. "I know there's been some speculation about why I'm throwing this party, why it's on what was supposed to be my wedding day, why the venue and the date stayed the same even though the groom is no longer in the picture." Polite laughter. Josh shifted uncomfortably near the back. "But I wanted to celebrate anyway, because 3 weeks ago, I dodged one hell of a bullet." More laughter now, less polite. People were leaning in, sensing drama. "You see, I was engaged to a man who I thought was honest, successful, and trustworthy. Turns out he was none of those things. He was, however, very good at lying." I pulled up my phone, connected it to the venue's AV system. I thought about giving a long speech about betrayal and heartbreak, but honestly, I think the evidence speaks for itself. The screens around the ballroom lit up with bank statements, property records, all the evidence of Josh's embezzlement and fraud. Gasps rippled through the crowd. I watched Josh's face go from confused to horrified as he realized what was happening. This is my ex-fiancé's financial history. Notice the withdrawals from his family's trust fund, the property he bought in Henderson, the SEC violations in his venture fund management. Josh Monroe isn't just a cheater, he's a criminal.
Josh stood up, his face red. "Lydia, what the hell are you doing?" "I'm telling the truth," I said calmly. "Something you never seemed capable of." I nodded to Dominic, who gestured to security. They moved to block the exits. Josh was trapped. But I'm not the only woman Josh lied to. There's someone here tonight who has her own story to tell. "Amber?" Amber stood from her seat near the front, and I saw Josh's face drain of color. She walked up to the microphone, took it from me, and looked directly at him. "Hi, Josh," she said, her voice shaking but strong. "Remember me? Remember my son, Ethan, the one you promised to be a father to, the one you abandoned without a word?" She turned to face the crowd. "My name is Amber Sinclair, and for 18 months I was Josh Monroe's mistress. Except I didn't know I was the mistress. He told me Lydia was just someone his family wanted him to be seen with for business reasons. He said he loved me, that he wanted to marry me, that he wanted to be a dad to my little boy. He set me up in a house, paid for everything, made me believe we had a future." The ballroom was dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop. And then, 3 weeks ago, he called off his engagement to Lydia, and I actually thought that meant he was finally going to commit to me. But instead, he cut me off completely, froze my accounts, stopped paying the mortgage, ghosted me and my 4-year-old son. Because Josh Monroe doesn't care about anyone but himself. He played us both, used us both, and he would have kept doing it if Lydia hadn't been smart enough to figure out his game. Amber handed the microphone back to me, her eyes shining with tears, but her head held high. The room erupted in whispers, people pulling out their phones to record, to text, to post. This was going viral in real time, and there was nothing Josh could do to stop it. "So yes," I said into the microphone, "I'm celebrating tonight. Celebrating the fact that I found out who Josh really was before I married him. Celebrating the fact that Amber and I found each other and decided to fight back instead of staying silent. And celebrating the fact that there are consequences for treating people like disposable accessories." I raised my champagne glass to new beginnings, to honesty, and to never, ever settling for less than we deserve.
The room erupted in applause and cheers. People were on their feet, glasses raised. And Josh looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. His date had already fled. His friends were backing away from him. And then, because the universe has a sense of humor, Victoria Monroe pushed through the crowd. "You," she said to Josh, her voice like ice. "You stole from our family. You humiliated us. You're done, Joshua. Done." She turned to me. "Lydia, I owe you an apology. I should have listened. I should have—" She stopped, swallowed hard. "Thank you for exposing the truth." "Thank you for believing me," I said quietly. Victoria walked out, and Josh tried to follow her, but Dominic's security team blocked his path. "Not so fast," Dominic said, appearing at my side. "Miranda?" My lawyer stepped forward, holding a folder. "Joshua Monroe, you're being served with a lawsuit for fraud, breach of contract, and embezzlement. You're also under investigation by the SEC and the Nevada Attorney General's office. I'd suggest you get a good lawyer. You're going to need one." She handed him the papers, and he just stood there, shock-shelled. "We done here, Dominic?" "We're done. Security will escort Mr. Monroe out."
I watched as they led Josh away, and I felt nothing. No triumph, no satisfaction, just a weary kind of relief. It was over. I'd done what I'd set out to do. Josh's reputation was destroyed, his business was collapsing, and everyone knew the truth. But standing there in my red dress, with 300 people staring at me, I realized revenge wasn't as sweet as I'd imagined. It was necessary, it was justice, but it wasn't going to fix the hurt or erase the betrayal. The party continued after Josh left. People kept coming up to me, congratulating me, calling me brave and badass and every other compliment under the sun. Amber stayed close, and I made sure everyone knew she was the victim in this, not the villain. By 10 p.m., I was exhausted, emotionally and physically drained. Dominic found me hiding in a corner, nursing a glass of champagne. "Hey," he said softly, "you okay?" "I don't know," I admitted. "I thought I'd feel better, vindicated, but mostly I just feel tired." "That's normal," he said, pulling me close. "Revenge is exhausting. But Lydia, you did the right thing. You stood up for yourself and for Amber. You made sure Josh faces consequences. That matters." "Does it?" "Yeah, it does. Because guys like Josh, they count on people being too scared or too tired to fight back. You fought back. You won. And now you get to move on and build something better." I looked up at him, this man who'd loved me through everything, who'd shown up when I needed him most. "Move on to what?" "Whatever you want," he said. "But if you're taking suggestions, I'd like to throw my hat into the ring for whatever comes next." I laughed, real and genuine for the first time all night. "You're really not going to give up on me, are you?" "Never. You're stuck with me, remember?" "Good," I said, standing on my toes to kiss him. "I love you too, Dominic Ferrara. I should have said it a year ago, but I'm saying it now. I love you, and I want to build something real with you. No games, no walls, just us." His smile could have lit up all of Vegas. That's all I've ever wanted. The party wound down around midnight. Amber left with a check for $20,000 and a promise to stay in touch. Most of the guests filtered out, still buzzing about what they'd witnessed. And I stood in the emptying ballroom with Dominic's hand in mine, looking at the ruins of what was supposed to be my wedding venue, and felt something like peace settle over me. Josh texted me at 2 a.m. after I'd gotten home and changed into pajamas and was curled up on my couch with Dominic. "You destroyed my life," it said. "I hope you're happy." I showed Dominic the message. "Should I respond?" "Up to you," he said. I thought about it for a long moment. Then I typed, "You destroyed your own life, Josh. I just made sure everyone knew about it. Good luck with everything."
But the best notification was an email from Victoria Monroe. "Lydia," it read,
My husband and I have pressed charges against Joshua for embezzlement. We're also cooperating fully with the SEC investigation. Thank you for bringing this to our attention, even though the method was unconventional. If there's anything we can do to support you in your lawsuit, please let us know. You deserve justice. Victoria. I forwarded it to Miranda with a smiley face emoji. Justice. Maybe that was what I'd been looking for all along. Not revenge, but justice. The knowledge that Josh would face real consequences, that his actions wouldn't just disappear because he was rich and charming. Over the next few months, everything fell into place. Josh's venture fund collapsed, and he was charged with multiple counts of fraud and embezzlement. The trial was set for the following year, but his lawyers were already talking plea deals. His parents cut him off completely, and last I heard he was living in a studio apartment in North Las Vegas, working some dead-end job, his tail fully between his legs. Amber got a job at one of my clients' companies, something in marketing that paid well and had good benefits. She and Ethan were doing okay. Not great, but okay. And that was enough. As for me, I threw myself back into work, building my business bigger and better than before. The publicity from the party actually helped. Apparently, everyone wanted to hire the woman who'd orchestrated the revenge of the century. My client list doubled. I opened a second office. I hired more staff. And through it all, Dominic was there, supporting me, loving me, being exactly the partner I'd always needed but had been too scared to accept. 6 months after the party, he asked me to move in with him for the second time. We were having dinner at the same Italian restaurant where we'd planned Josh's downfall, and he just looked at me and said, "Move in with me. For real this time. No panic, no running, just us building a life together." And I said yes, because I'd learned something important through this whole mess. Running from the things that scare you doesn't make you safe. It just makes you alone. And I was done being alone. A year after the party, Dominic and I got engaged. No public proposal, no big production, just the two of us on his back patio at sunset. Him asking and me saying yes, without hesitation. We planned a small wedding, just close friends and family. Nothing like the circus I'd almost married Josh in. Simple, intimate, honest. Everything a wedding should be. Maya came wearing her Air Force dress blues and crying through the whole ceremony. Simone was my maid of honor and gave a speech about how I'd always been the strongest person she knew. I just finally figured out how to use that strength for good instead of just survival. Even Amber came, bringing Ethan, who was now 5 and had completely forgotten about Josh. Kids really are resilient like that. Standing at that altar, looking at Dominic and seeing nothing but love and honesty and commitment in his eyes, I realized something. The best revenge wasn't destroying Josh. It was building something beautiful out of the ashes of what he'd tried to destroy. It was learning to trust again, to love again, to be vulnerable again. It was proving that someone else's betrayal didn't define me or limit me or break me. Josh had tried to make me feel small, disposable, easily replaced. But I wasn't any of those things. I was Lydia Castellano, self-made businesswoman, survivor, fighter, and I'd build a life worth living, a love worth keeping, and a future worth believing in. The day after my wedding to Dominic, I got one final text from Josh from yet another new number. I saw the wedding photos. It said, "I'm sorry for everything. I hope you're happy." I almost didn't respond, almost just blocked the number and moved on. But then I thought about everything that had happened, all the pain and growth and change, and I decided he deserved one last message from me. I am happy. Happier than I ever was with you. And Josh, I forgive you. Not because you deserve it, but because I do. I deserve to let go of the anger and move forward. I hope you figure your life out. I hope you learn to be better. But mostly, I hope I never hear from you again. I blocked the number, deleted the message, and went downstairs where Dominic was making breakfast in our kitchen. Because, yes, we'd bought a house together, a beautiful place in the foothills with a view of the whole city. He looked up when I came in, smiled that smile that still made my heart skip, and pulled me into his arms. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Everything's perfect," I said, and I meant it. Because here's the thing they don't tell you about revenge. It can feel good in the moment, but it's not what heals you. What heals you is choosing to build something better. It's refusing to let someone else's cruelty make you cruel. It's standing up for yourself and others, yes, but then moving forward, instead of staying stuck in the past. Josh tried to break me, but I wouldn't break. Amber tried to survive, and I helped her thrive. And I learned that the strongest thing you can do isn't always fighting back. Sometimes it's letting go. Sometimes it's forgiving, not for them, but for you. Sometimes it's choosing to be happy anyway, in spite of everything. So yeah, Josh called off our wedding at brunch in front of all his friends. He humiliated me, cheated on me, lied to me, and I made sure the whole world knew what he'd done. But then I did something even better. I let it go. I built a life with someone who actually valued me. I helped another woman escape the same trap I'd almost fallen into, and I proved to myself that I was strong enough to survive anything. That's the real victory, not the public humiliation or the legal consequences or the viral videos. It's waking up every morning next to someone who loves me for exactly who I am. It's running a business I'm proud of. It's having relationships with my sister and my friends that are honest and real. It's being happy, genuinely happy, for the first time in my life. Josh Monroe tried to destroy me, but all he did was show me how much I was capable of. And for that, in a weird way, I'm almost grateful, because I never would have found this version of myself, strong, confident, loved, if he hadn't pushed me to my breaking point. The moral of this story: when someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time. Stand up for yourself, always. But also know when to stop fighting and start healing. Know when to let go of the anger and embrace the possibility of something better. And most importantly, know your worth. Don't let anyone, not a cheating fiancé, not a judgmental family, not even your own fear, convince you that you're anything less than extraordinary. I'm Lydia Castellano Ferrara now, and this is my story. Not a story about revenge, but about survival, growth, and finding the strength to build something beautiful from the ruins of what almost destroyed you. If I can do it, the girl from the Henderson trailer park who clawed her way to the top, then anyone can. Never settle, never give up, and never, ever let anyone make you feel like you're not enough. You are enough. You always were. You just have to believe it. The best revenge isn't destruction. It's building a life so beautiful that the person who hurt you becomes irrelevant. Stand up for yourself. Expose the truth when necessary, but don't let revenge consume you. Real strength lies in healing, forgiving for your own peace, and choosing happiness despite the pain. Never let someone else's betrayal dim your light or define your worth. You are more than what was done to you.